During dinner, my father-in-law suggested that our daughter give up her trip to Disneyland for her birthday, so that her cousin could go instead. He said, "You're older. Act like an adult." My daughter stared at her plate. Then my husband stood up and said this. Her parents turned pale. My father-in-law tried to take my daughter's birthday away from her while she was still chewing her first bite of dinner. We were barely 5 minutes into Sunday dinner when Richard set his fork down and said Emma should give her Disneyland trip to her cousin instead. Just like that. No build-up. No discussion. Emma had turned 12 that week. Caleb and I had been saving for months to take her for her birthday. Extra shifts, canceled subscriptions, selling things we did not need. She had the park map folded in her pocket like it was a treasure map. Richard looked straight at her and said, "Ava has never been. You're older. Act like an adult." Emma stared at her plate. Diane nodded along like this was some kind of life lesson. She said it would build character. She said Ava deserved a big memory for once. As parents have had money problems, which is true. But that did not explain why my daughter was supposed to give up the one thing she had been counting down to for months. I felt my chest tighten. This was not new behavior. When Emma made on a roll, they reminded everyone that Ava struggles in school. When Emma got a solo in choir, they suggested we not post videos online because it might upset Ava. Every milestone had to be softened. But this was the first time they tried to take something concrete. Non-refundable tickets. Hotel booked. It was happening in 2 weeks. Richard kept talking. He said we could transfer the tickets to Ava. He said Emma was at the age where she should start thinking of others. He said birthdays are just days. Emma's hands were twisted in her napkin. He did not say a word. I waited for Caleb. In the past, he usually tried to smooth things over later. He would say his parents did not mean it the way it sounded. This time, he did not stay seated. He pushed his chair back so hard it hit the wall. He stood up and looked directly at his father. No hesitation. "If you want to talk about acting like an adult," he said, "let's talk about what you did with Emma's college fund." The room went silent. Diane's face changed immediately. Not confusion, not anger, fear. And that was the moment I realized this was never about Disneyland. No one moved after Caleb said it. Richard blinked like he had misheard him. "College fund. What are you talking about?" Caleb did not sit back down. He stayed standing, hands on the back of his chair. "The account you offered to manage for us when Emma was born. The one you said would grow faster if you handled it. That college fund." I felt my stomach drop. When Emma was a baby, Richard had insisted on setting up an investment account for her. He worked in finance for years. He said he knew how to make money work. Caleb trusted him. I trusted Caleb. Every birthday and Christmas, instead of toys from his parents, they would announce they were adding to her future. We never questioned it. Dan tried to laugh. "This is not the time." Caleb ignored her. "I asked you last month for the updated statements. You said you were waiting on paperwork. Then you said the bank had changed systems. Then you stopped answering." Richard's face had gone rigid. He said, "We can discuss this privately." "No," Caleb said. "We can discuss it now." Emma slowly looked up. She looked confused more than anything. I felt exposed. I had not known Caleb had been asking for statements. He had not mentioned it to me. Richard finally said, "The market has been unstable. You know that there have been adjustments." "Adjustments," Caleb repeated. "How much is left?" Diane reached for her water glass but did not drink. She said investments fluctuate. You cannot panic every time there is a dip. Caleb pulled his phone out. I called the bank on Friday. The account was closed 8 months ago. I heard my own heartbeat in my ears. Closed, I said. Richard looked at Diane, and that was the first time I saw it clearly. Not shock, not confusion, calculation. It was reinvested, he said. And what? Caleb asked. There was a long pause. Finally, Richard said, we needed a short-term loan. For who? Caleb said. Neither of them answered right away. Then Diane said, for Ava's medical treatments. The words hung there. Ava had some health issues last year. Nothing life-threatening, but no for hospital visits and specialists. We had sent flowers. We had dropped off meals. No one had mentioned money. Caleb's voice was steady. You took our daughter's college fund without telling us. It was temporary. Richard said we were going to put it back with what Caleb asked. Richard opened his mouth and closed it again. Emma was still sitting there, very still, looking between all of us. And then Diane said something that made everything worse. We thought you would understand. You always favored Emma anyway. That was when Caleb's jaw tightened in a way I had never seen before. And I realized dinner was over. The accusation sat there like smoke. You always favored Emma anyway. I looked at Diane, trying to understand how she had twisted this in her head. Emma is our daughter. Of course, we favor her. That is not a crime. Caleb did not raise his voice. He just asked one question. How much? Richard rubbed his forehead and finally said the number. $38,000. I felt like the floor shifted under me. That was not birthday money and a few holiday deposits. That was 12 years of contributions. Some from us, some from my parents, some from Caleb's yearly bonuses. We had skipped vacations to build that account, and it was gone. Richard rushed to explain. It was not gone. It was helping family. Ava needed specialists out of state. Insurance did not cover everything. We planned to replace it within a year. With what income? Caleb asked. Richard's consulting work had slowed down years ago. Diane had retired early. They weren't struggling publicly, but they were not flush with cash either. We thought you would step in if we asked directly, Diane said. But you can be stubborn, especially about money. Caleb let out a short breath. So instead of asking, you stole it. Do not use that word, Richard snapped. What word would you prefer? Caleb said. Emma finally spoke very quietly. Does this mean I am not going to college? That broke something in me. I moved next to her and put my hand on her shoulder. Of course, you're going to college. Do not worry about that. But the truth was, I had no idea how we were going to rebuild that kind of money. Richard leaned forward and tried to soften it. Emma, sweetheart, this was for your cousin's health. Family takes care of family. One day you will understand. Emma looked at him for the first time since this started. I did not say she could have it. No one answered her. Then Caleb said something I did not expect. Ava did not need out-of-state specialists. Diane stiffened. What are you talking about? Caleb looked at his father. I called Mark last week. Mark is Ava's dad, Richard's son from his first marriage. The golden child, the one who could do no wrong. He told me the hospital bills were covered by a payment plan. He said you offered to help, but he declined because he did not want to owe you. The room went dead quiet. Richard's face lost color for the second time that night. Caleb continued. He also said he never received $38,000 from you. I felt my stomach twist. If the money did not go to Ava's treatments, then where did it go? Diane opened her mouth, but no sound came out at first, and then the front doorbell rang. No one was expecting anyone. Caleb looked toward the hallway. Richard stood up quickly, almost too quickly. I had this sudden horrible feeling that whoever was on the other side of that door knew exactly where the money had gone. Richard moved toward the door fast, like he could block whatever was about to happen. Caleb stepped in front of him. "I'll get it." "You do not even know who it is," Richard said. "Exactly," Caleb answered. The doorbell rang again. Caleb opened the door, and standing there was a woman I had never seen before. Mid-40s, holding a folder. Not a neighbor, not family. She looked past Caleb into the house and asked, "Is Richard Lawson here?" Richard's face drained again. "I'm here," he said from behind us. The woman introduced herself as being from a civil litigation firm. She said she had tried calling and emailing. She needed to formally deliver documents regarding a pending lawsuit. Lawsuit over what? Diane asked quickly. The woman kept it simple. Allegations of financial misrepresentation and breach of fiduciary duty. I felt my ears ringing. Caleb took the folder before Richard could. He flipped it open right there in the doorway. The name on the complaint was not Mark. It was Mrs. Patterson, Emma's other grandmother, my mother. 3 months earlier, my mom had mentioned she had transferred a substantial amount into Emma's college account directly, wanting to boost it before Emma started high school. She had told Richard because he managed the account. I had not thought twice about it. Caleb looked up slowly. "You took money from Illa's mom, too." Richard started talking fast. "It was not taking. It was an investment opportunity. Short term, high yield. The timing just shifted. My mother does not file lawsuits over timing issues," I said. Diane tried to regain control. "This is being blown out of proportion. We were trying to grow the fund faster." The woman at the door spoke again. "The funds were moved into a private development project under your name, Mr. Lawson. The project defaulted." Caleb looked at his father. "What project?" Richard hesitated just long enough. "The lake property." I knew exactly what that was. 2 years ago, Richard had bragged about getting in early on a lakeside development. Luxury cabins. High return. He said it was a smart play. I just never realized he used our daughter's future as his entry ticket. "You gambled her college on real estate." Caleb said it was not gambling. Richard snapped. "It was strategic." The market shifted unexpectedly. Emma was watching all of this like she had aged 5 years and 10 minutes. Then Diane said the one thing that made everything click. "We were going to fix it before anyone noticed." That is when I understood why they wanted Emma to give up Disneyland. If we had quietly transferred those tickets to Ava, if we had agreed to play generous parents, it would have bought them time. They were hoping we would not push a booth account if we were busy being the bigger people. Caleb handed the folder back to the woman and said we would be in touch. He closed the door. Then he turned to his parents. He tried to shame a 12-year-old into giving up her birthday so he could cover up stealing from her. No one argued with that. Richard looked smaller than I had ever seen him. Diane finally said, "What are you going to do?" Caleb did not hesitate. "I am done." And I realized he did not just mean the dinner. "I am done." Caleb did not raise his voice. He just said it like a fact. Richard tried to step in front of him. "You are overreacting. Families have disagreements." "You stole from my daughter," Caleb said. "You stole from my wife's mother. And then you tried to manipulate a child to cover it up." Diane said we were being dramatic. She said lawsuits tear families apart. She said if we walked out now, there would be no coming back from it. Emma was still sitting at the table. Caleb walked over to her and crouched down beside her chair. "We are still going to Disneyland," he told her. She looked at him carefully like she was not sure what promises meant anymore. "Nothing changes about your birthday," he said. "This has nothing to do with you." Then he stood up and faced his parents again. "You will be hearing from our lawyer. All communication goes through them. Do not contact Emma. Do not contact Illa's mom. If you try to pressure us or spin this, we will add it to the case. Richard looked stunned. You would sue your own father. You already forced that path, Caleb said. Diane's voice shifted from defensive to pleading. We can fix this privately. We can work out a repayment plan. With what money? Caleb asked. The lake project collapsed. Everyone knows that. Half your friends lost money in it. That was the first confirmation that this was bigger than just us. Richard finally said the quiet part out loud. I thought it would double in a year. I was going to surprise you. Put back more than I took. You did not take from me. Caleb said you took from a child. Emma stood up then. She did not cry. He just said, "Can we go home?" That hit harder than anything else. We left the food untouched. No one tried to stop us when we walked out. In the car, it was silent for a long time. Then Caleb said something I will never forget. When I was 19, my dad opened a credit card in my name without telling me. I found out when collectors called. He said it was temporary. He said he would handle it. I paid it off myself. I stared at him. You never told me that. I thought he had changed, Caleb said. I wanted to believe he had changed. Suddenly, everything made sense. The secrecy about the account, the delays, the excuses. This was not new behavior. It was a pattern. Emma leaned forward between the seats and asked one question. Are we really not going to see Grandpa and Grandma anymore? Caleb looked at her in the rearview mirror. Not until they fix what they broke. And I knew he meant more than money. The next morning, Richard showed up at our house. He did not call first. I saw his car through the front window, and my stomach tightened. Caleb was already on a call with a lawyer my mom recommended. When he saw who it was, he ended the call and stepped outside before Richard could knock again. I stayed inside with Emma, but I could see them through the glass. Richard was not angry this time. He looked tired. He talked for a while. Caleb barely responded. At one point, Richard gestured toward the house, probably asking to come in. Caleb shook his head. After a few minutes, Caleb came back inside holding an envelope. He did not open it right away. He just placed it on the kitchen counter and looked at it. What is it? I asked. A cashier's check. 10,000. That was not even a third of what was gone. He says he can get more by selling the boat, Caleb said, and maybe refinancing the house. Maybe. Emma walked into the kitchen quietly. She looked at the envelope. Is that my college money? Part of it, Caleb said. She nodded slowly, then said something that neither of us expected. I do not want it if it makes everyone lie. Caleb looked at her carefully. What do you mean? He shrugged. They keep saying it was for family, but if it was really for family, they would have just asked. There was nothing childish about the way she said it. That afternoon, Caleb made it official. He told his parents in writing that all communication would go through attorneys. He froze his credit, then Emma's, just in case. He filed a police report not because he wanted his father arrested, but because the lawyer said documentation mattered. Diane called me from a blocked number that evening. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was simple. You are tearing this family apart. I deleted it. 2 weeks later, we were standing in front of the Disneyland entrance. Emma was wearing the birthday button, and they give you at the gate. She looked lighter somehow. Caleb squeezed my hand and said, I should have done this years ago. The lawsuit is still ongoing. My mom Saturny says we will likely recover most of it through asset liquidation. Richard's Lake investment partners have filed their own claims. It turns out we were not the only ones who trusted him with money that was not his. We have not heard from them since the liar stepped in. Sometimes I think about that dinner, about how easily they told a 12-year-old to give up her birthday, how confident they were that shame would work. What they did not expect was that this time Caleb would stand up not just for Disneyland, for his